All right, I think we're live. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is August 2nd, 2022, and it is roughly 8:30 p.m. here in New York City. Now, we're starting the stream off in a very familiar location. We are directly under 432 Park Avenue, which is a beautiful building on Billionaires Row here at 57th Street. But I think today, as you can see in the title of the video, I think we're going to walk all the way down to the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, I think that's what we're probably going to do. I feel like the last couple weeks, maybe even the last couple months, maybe like a month or two, we usually had stayed in like Midtown East, Billionaires Row type of area, all the way down to Grand Central Station, then ending the stream off 34th Street, Penn Station. So I think I want to change it up a little bit tonight if you guys don't mind. So on the agenda for tonight, it was obviously a very, very big day on Wall Street for corporate earnings. Yesterday, we had a software company in which I cover extensively, ZoomInfo, report earnings. So we'll briefly talk about that. I like the CEO a lot, Henry Schuck. ZoomInfo is an enterprise software company that helps salespeople drive revenue. It's essentially, if anybody's heard of the company Dun & Bradstreet, maybe if you've used them back in the day, it's essentially a 10x database. So the way I used it back in the day during my early career as an account executive is it integrated really well with Salesforce, right? So we use, and many of you probably that are watching the stream, you either use some sort of CRM, right, a customer relationship management tool, and you also may have, a piece of software application to manage your leads or to give you leads and things like that. So long story short, I'm very familiar with ZoomInfo. I think it's a great product. The team over there is really good, and I think the data is top quality. And the company is reporting fantastic financial results. So we're going to do a deep dive into ZoomInfo's earnings report. We are also going to talk about AMD. I think it's very appropriate to talk about semiconductor stocks, being that AMD did report earnings today. Also, Nancy Pelosi did land in Taiwan. So we will talk about semiconductors, chips in general. We're going to talk if we see any slowdown potentially up ahead in semiconductor demand. Then we're going to briefly touch on StarBucks earnings, ticker symbol SBUX. They did report after the bell. Actually, surprise beat on both the top and the bottom line. However, one of the things that was really interesting that I think I want to dive into a little bit today is when Starbucks was talking about their business in China. Now, even still now, we're almost halfway through 2022, Starbucks is still seeing problems in their China market in relation to COVID spikes. They have to close stores. Sometimes they have to temporarily shut stores in the middle of the day. So that has impacted revenue, and that has impacted growth for Starbucks in the quarter, but we'll talk about that as well. Robinhood, another news, Robinhood hot off the press here. Robinhood lays off about 23% of their staff. That's no news to you if you've been watching the streams. We've been talking about how Robinhood is essentially predicated on a very, very unstable business model of preying on retail investors during times of irrational exuberance and irrational excess. We're also going to be talking about Airbnb. A lot on the agenda for tonight, everybody. So just bear with me, a lot to cover. I think it's going to be a nice night. It's humid in New York, so I brought plenty of water with me on our walk. But Airbnb reported a fantastic quarter. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into Airbnb. And then we're going to end the night with some very, very good news. So you guys know I tend to like to be an optimist. Some people oftentimes email me and tell me that I'm too optimistic, but maybe that's just in my nature. So nationally, average apartment rents rose about 9.4% in the second quarter of 2022 compared with the same quarter in 2021. It is down more than 11% than the previous two quarters. So that's some of the good news we're going to talk about. That rents seem to be stagnating, if not coming down a little bit. And if we think about the CPI numbers, last month we had a CPI print of about 9.1%. I think almost 40% or maybe a little bit above housing and rents go into the CPI. So as rents come down, especially in some of the neighborhoods or the markets across the United States that saw crazy rent booms, such as Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas, and Tampa, Florida. As those rents come down, hopefully we'll see that reflected in the CPI numbers, but we will talk about that as the stream progresses. But guys, let's get into the best part of the stream when we say hello to all the viewers. Let's see who we have. Hey, AT4, good to see you. This is First, good to see you. Otto is here, says hello, Tom. Good afternoon, Otto. Sally is here. Taya says hola. Dante Rose, the one and only. Good to see you, Dante. Vinny Castellano is here. Says hello, my friend. Hope you had a good one. You know, I did. I had a good day. It was a little bit hectic, though, at work. But we'll work through it. We'll work through it. A lot of customers are extremely needy as of late. But that's good, and that's my job, you know. Our job is to service our customers, try to make them feel good. But definitely was a very long day at work. Hopefully everybody's day, the viewers in the chat, hopefully your day went good as well. Design Ideas is here. Says, good evening, Tom. What's up? Design Ideas, welcome. NMB045 says, so glad you're getting back to your regular scheduling. Yes. So NMB045, I totally agree. So for those of you who are new to the stream, we usually start the live streams at 8:30 on the dot, but the month of July was extremely busy for me. So I do apologize if we style drifted away from some of our normal, regular scheduled programming. I will say that we will also be back on track, back on schedule when it relates to the Behind the Street newsletter. That will be back on track starting next Tuesday. So please look in your inbox next Tuesday because we will have the newsletter back on track. Ryan Royals has got my coffee and ready to go. Where are we headed tonight? So Ryan, I think we're probably going to go all the way down to the Brooklyn Bridge. I feel like we've been staying around Midtown, Central Park South, Billionaires Row quite often. So I think we're going to make a gun for it all the way down to the Brooklyn Bridge. So that's really good news because we're going to walk right past Madison Square Park. We're going to walk past Washington Square Park, maybe through Little Italy and Chinatown, in which case we will conclude at the Brooklyn Bridge. And I definitely need some exercise. So before we jump right into the finance stuff, everybody, so I was looking at some of my health analytics on my iPhone. And for the month of July, during the streams, we averaged about 17,000 steps, which is pretty good. I mean, 17,000 steps a day. It's definitely good to get up, get active. I think streaming after work really helps me clear my mind. And a lot of the times, you know, we're talking about finance, we're talking about earnings, we're talking about core financial concepts, you know, for 2.5 hours each night. So it really helps me retain that information too. So that's just one thing that I've noticed in terms of productivity, helping memorize core concepts and things like that. Wendy England is here. What's up, Wendy England? Good to see you. Ryan Royal says we're going to get some steps in tonight on a scenic route. We are. You know, the only thing, it is extremely humid in the city today. New York City is going through a heat wave. I think the next couple days, maybe the next 2 or 3 days in New York, it's going to be in the upper 90s. So it's going to be really hot. Just a quick PSA for anybody who has family in New York City, maybe they're a little bit older, please make sure you're checking in on the elderly, especially during this time of a heat wave. It is no joke. It may not seem like much, but it is very important. Very important to check in on people that may not have AC, right? So please do that. Yeah, Ruby Falcone says the Nightbot shows 50% humidity. It's crazy. And you know, it's funny, Ruby, you know, in Miami, it's obviously really humid in Miami all the time. But for some reason, it just feels different when it's very humid in Miami in relation to when it's really humid in New York. But check out this building. I'm not sure what's going to go in here, but it's one of my new favorites on Park Avenue. I like the architectural design. Hey, Dylan says best team. Been there a few times. Good to see you. The ABX girl is here. Says hey all. Good evening. Good afternoon, the ABX girl. Sinjib is here. Says hey Tom. Welcome, Sinjib. Hopefully you're having a good one. Hey, Nako says Liverpool love that soccer team, so cool. Shadow Ship says, I hope you're not still in your suit, are you? No, we're not. So the funny thing is I haven't really been wearing suits to work for a long time. Because even though everybody is, I would say probably everybody's back into the office, maybe 2 times a week, 2 days a week, still a lot of my customer and client meetings are still remote, are still virtually. So instead of going into, visiting an office of one of my clients or something like that, I still kind of do them remotely. So I've just been wearing, I guess you could call it business casual. I think I've only suited up maybe like 2 or 3 times this entire year. Hey, Manny Explores is here. Good to see you, Manny. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, stay hydrated. It's so humid today. Humid today, and it's going to be humid throughout the entire remainder of the week too. But good to see you, my friend Manny Explores. Paul Tricky says, hey Tom, I think it's the buildings so close together. Go Arsenal. Good to see you, Paul. Is Arsenal playing right now or something? It's funny. I used to be a big soccer player back in the day, but I don't really follow the sport. I played it in college and things like that, but very seldom do I actually follow the sport, like the teams and the things like that. I don't know why. Especially after COVID. It seems like once COVID swept through, closed everything down in relation to sports, I never really got back to following it. But Troy 1995 says, what position? I was a center midfielder, but I also played left back. And the reason why I like playing center mid is because you definitely get a lot of exercise. I think in a professional soccer game, the average center midfielder could run like 10 miles in a game, which is crazy. So think about that in a 90-minute game. Pretty nuts. Hey, Chris Beeman is here. What's up? Steph Wright is here. Says, no, we're just talking about the English Premier League. Good to see you, Steph Wright. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Hey, Sabrina Ferris says, suits are very difficult to come by. We have to go to London, New York, or Los Angeles for the husband. Awesome, love that. Bagels and Walks is here. Says, hey, Tom and New York City friends. Beautiful night. Good to see you, Bagels and Walks. Nako says Everton. So I think, not to get too down a soccer rabbit hole, but I'm down to go down that rabbit hole. I think Landon Donovan actually was on loan to Everton for a little bit, right? Was it during the off season? I can't remember, but I think he played a couple of games there, didn't he? I think so. Troy 1995 says, did you see Bill Ackman's interview on CNBC today? I didn't. I missed it. But please key me in on that, because I believe Bill Ackman was on CNBC talking about Visa. So Visa's in some hot water because supposedly or allegedly, and again, I haven't really been following this as closely as Bill Ackman has, but in relation to the pornographic sites like Pornhub and things like that, they're obviously connected to child trafficking, which is absolutely horrible and egregious. And it seems that Visa, which is a credit card processor, ticker symbol V, is obviously being extremely greedy, and they're still processing some of the payments for the advertising on those particular sites. So I was reading a little bit about what Bill Ackman had to say about it on Twitter, and it was kind of so horrible and depressing I just had to click off. But I think, again, Bill Ackman, even though he may be a very controversial figure on Wall Street, I think he's a very respectable guy. And a lot of people like to hate on Bill Ackman. A lot of people like to throw stones at him. But I think at the end of the day, his activist investor mentality, I actually think is quite good for the markets. But is that what he was on CNBC for today? I could have sworn that's what he was going to be on CNBC for. If anybody could chime in there. Yeah, Nako says Tim Howard, American, played at Everton as well. Yeah, so Tim Howard, I think he was he was the goalkeeper for the United States national team. But yeah, he was a starter for Everton as a goalie for a long time. Hey, Gregory is here. Good to see you, Gregory. Thank you for joining us. So everybody, we're headed southbound. on Park Avenue. We're not going to stop to look at any of the sites, you know, sort of take our time because we got to get down to the Brooklyn Bridge. So we will be streaming from a different location tonight, which I'm pretty excited about. You know, we haven't walked through Chelsea, we haven't walked through Little Italy or Chinatown in quite some time, so I'm excited. I'm excited for the walk. Hey, Joan is here. Welcome, Joan. The ABX girl says the court says Visa is liable. Amex stopped payments in 2002 because of that. Wow. So, hold on, let me read that again. So, ABX girl says the court says Visa is liable and American Express stopped payments in 2020 because of it. So that means I'll probably have to dig in and see if I have any cards that are Visa and I'll have to cancel them. But then again, I don't think I do. I only have a business credit card through Amex. I don't think I have any Visa stuff. Maybe like a debit card, but yeah, I'm gonna have. If anybody could put it in the chat, Bill Ackman's CNBC interview, I'll take a look at it. But I was reading his thread on Twitter about it. Yeah, Troy 1995 says Ackman quit being an activist investor. End of an era. Yeah, I would always enjoy back in the day. I think the most notable one, you know, now that we're on the topic of Bill Ackman, and I think everybody could probably attest to this, I think the most notable sort of dispute or back and forth on CNBC in public eye was Bill Ackman and another very notable investor, Carl Icahn. Does anybody remember the big dispute? So essentially, Bill Ackman's hedge fund, Pershing Square, back in the day, made a really, really compelling short thesis on a company. I always forget this company. You guys know I always forget it. Herbalife. In which case, he was building a thesis saying Herbalife is one of those Ponzi-like schemes or pyramid scam companies, right? In which case, they, well, allegedly, let me say this alleged so we don't get in trouble here. Bill Ackman was claiming that allegedly Herbalife would prey on or take advantage of mainly minorities in the United States from a lower income to sell these products and services. But the way it was set up was really kind of bizarre, actually. So supposedly, and this was such a long time ago, I read this bear thesis about it, but I guess the way it worked is you had to purchase all the inventory up front and then hawk all of these goods and services and, you know, the Herbalife products to friends and family, and almost nobody would make any money doing it, right? So it was one of those classic pyramid type schemes. And Carl Icahn had a massive long position in the stock, and Bill Ackman was actively shorting the stock, and they were going at it almost weekly on CNBC. Really entertaining stuff, but yeah, we'll definitely miss that old Bill Ackman for sure. Hey, Lewis is here. This is legit. Walks missed. Been busy. Good to see you. Good to see you, Lewis. Wendy England says that's a pyramid scheme, allegedly. Paul Chan says walk by the Michelangelo Hotel. I'm not sure where that is, but we may if it's in the area. So we are going to head down, for those of you who are just tuning in, we are going to head down to the Brooklyn Bridge tonight. So I'm actually you're going to notice a swifter walking pace as we walk down. Brian is here, says hello, Tom and everybody. What's up, Brian? Good to see you. Dan Zhang says, have you watched the documentary Betting on Zero? It's a documentary about Ackman's short on Herbalife. You know, I have not. So is that on YouTube? If it's on YouTube, I'll probably pull it up and watch it. But Dan, so before I forget, hey, As Murray 6 is joining, says greetings from Michigan, Tom, and chatters. Good to see everybody from Michigan. Big shout out to everybody in Michigan. So before I forget, everybody, if you're in the Discord today, I haven't been active in it in a long time, but I wanted to share with you a very helpful interview that just came out on the Tony Robbins podcast. Now, I know a lot of people think that he's a very controversial figure, Tony Robbins, and I get that. But the reason why I want to share the interview is because he just sat down with billionaire hedge fund manager Ray Dalio. And it's so, this interview is so well done. For anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about a traditional business cycle, right, in and of itself, understand market mechanics from a historian's perspective, right? So Ray Dalio is probably the greatest American success story when it comes to the hedge fund business. Obviously started Bridgewater Capital, unbelievably successful hedge fund. He was able to navigate and predict and actually profit off of the 2008 financial crisis, and the way he's able to do that is by studying history, right? And in the interview, he oftentimes says that historians are oftentimes the best investors because they are very good at predicting cyclical events. So if you go on YouTube or you go on our Discord, I'd very, very strongly recommend you check out that interview. I think it's about 50 minutes. So maybe if you're on your morning run or you're, commuting to work, you're on the train or you're driving, definitely check it out. It's the Ray Dalio interview with Tony Robbins, talking about his new book that just came out, Rise and Fall of Empires, or the Transition in a New World Order. That terminology, the New World Order, a lot of people are saying, you know what, I'm not going to even pay attention to that because it sounds like a conspiracy theory. But trust me, it's not the conspiracy theory kook nuts that think, changing New World Order. No, it's more about looking at history and understanding economic superpowers and how they've come to power due to a global reserve currency, due to the ability to take on debt or debt acquisitions. So please check it out. I think you guys are going to love it. Hey, Jones, it's good to hear from you, Tom. Good to hear from you too, Joan. Sparks Carnival says, can we talk about Starbucks? I'm pleasantly surprised by their earnings. Yeah, so we could talk about that. We'll actually talk about that today. We might as well talk about it now. So Starbucks did beat on the top and the bottom line. But I did have some concerns, and I think the biggest concern in relation when it relates to Starbucks, and I would even go as far to say Amazon, maybe not as much, but is towards this whole unionization effort, right? So without saying it, I mean, we could say it on the stream because we don't work for Starbucks. They're probably trying to actively squash the unionization effort. I think it's probably safe to say that. I don't think it would be disingenuous to say that, but if we look at some of the revenue estimates, I believe Wall Street was expecting an $8.11 billion quarter. Starbucks narrowly beat that, coming in at $8.15 billion. So surprisingly, they beat on the top line revenue. But if we talk about EPS, which way should I go? We'll head straight because we'll be able to see the Empire State Building from here. But if we talk about EPS, earnings per share actually beat as well. So they beat on both the top and the bottom line. 84 cents of adjusted EPS versus 75 cents expected. The coffee giant reported fiscal third quarter net income attributed to Starbucks of $912.9 million, or 79 cents a share. That is down from $1.15 billion or 97 cents a share a year earlier. The company said that inflation and higher wages for baristas weighed on its margins for the quarter. Outside the United States, same-store sales did fall 18%, weighed down by plummeting demand in China. Starbucks said COVID restrictions affected sales in its second largest market for 2/3 of the quarter. As a result, China's same-store sales plunged 44%. And this is something we've been talking about, again, ad nauseum on the stream. And it's not just in relation to Starbucks. We've been talking about this in relation to global supply chain issues. So if you are going to continue on, and I know this is a very controversial topic because I get a lot of emails about it, but if you're going to have a zero COVID policy, it's going to be very, very difficult to operate a business and to sort out supply chains. Very difficult. And we're not only seeing that in global supply chains as they are just starting to heal, but we're starting to see that in corporate earnings too. So think about it from Starbucks' perspective. If you're trying to operate stores in China and you don't have that clarity to say, hey, everything's over now, you could open up, and you're closing and opening stores on almost a weekly basis, it's pretty hard to sort of forecast that. It's pretty hard to stick to your growth plan, right? Because if we look back, I would say all the way back to 2013, 2014, the main driver or the main catalyst for anybody to buy Starbucks stock was the growth story when it relates to China, right? Howard Schultz is a huge, huge China bull. I would say I am as well. I would say I am a China bull as well, but I think with the COVID restrictions, the zero COVID policy, it makes it very difficult for forecasting, and it makes it very difficult for new capital investments to open new stores because you don't know if they're going to be able to operate at full capacity or not. Two-wheel freedom says those Starbucks numbers and quotes were definitely on Tom's notes. Yes, they were, and we will post the notes. So here's another thing I think I'm going to do for everybody, just so you guys can see it. After the stream concludes, so every night after the stream is done, if you go to my YouTube community page, I'm going to post all of the notes as a stream recap, as well as all of the sources. So for example, yesterday we were talking about the Institute for Supply Management PMI numbers. If you go to my YouTube community page, I actually posted a link to the actual report so you can read it in real time. And anytime there's a company that's reporting earnings, such as Starbucks, we will post the 10 Qs as well as the investor deck on the stream as well. So since we're talking about Starbucks, if you want to follow along, if you type !SBUX in the chat, I did program the Nightbot to drop the financials or the news release so you guys could follow along if you want to build your or update your DCF models and things like that. Hey, Mike C says, how do you go to the YouTube community page? So I think if you just click my channel, if you just click Walks in Wall Street, and you click the top, it should say like videos, about, and then community. If you click community, you'll go there. Hey Jeff, good to see you. Jeff W277 says, miserable year for China bulls. Starbucks went up following the earnings report. Do you think that means China will actually have a positive session tonight? I've lost thousands trying to catch a falling knife in China. Yeah, and I think, and you're not alone by that, Jeff. You're definitely not alone. You know, it's unfortunate. And again, I think that a lot of people, I know my email box is probably going to be on fire tonight. But that's all right. I just think we have a difference in opinion on how to manage those situations. It's very hard to operate a business with uncertainty. But yeah, I mean, you know, if you want, so Jeff, if you want to get some insight into China, check out that Ray Dalio interview. So if you go to YouTube, if you type Ray Dalio, I guess you could just type in Ray Dalio and Changing New World Order. You'll be able to see it. And that's actually one of the new, his new books that he came out with. And essentially the thesis there is that the world goes through cyclical superpowers, right? So back in the day you had the British, now you have the United States, and then the speculation is that the United States will cease to be the superpower, and the US dollar will cease to be the world reserve currency, in which case somebody else will take over. Now that's not my thesis, but that is definitely Ray Dalio's. I'm not going to say if I agree with it or not. I agree with some parts that he says, but I think that the US dollar will continue to be the world's reserve currency in my view. But everybody, check this out. We are standing right outside of Grand Central Terminal overlooking the beautiful Chrysler building tonight. SBUX Carnival says, I'm nervous investing in China, especially on energy companies. Yeah, and we touched on that a little bit last night too. You know, there is a big risk that potential ADRs, or American Depository Receipts, like BABA, JD, could be delisted from American exchanges because China will not agree to the disclosures of financial disclosures that is up to the Security and Exchange Commission standards. Yes, SBUX Carnival says Uber absolutely exploded today. So I want to ask everybody in the chat a question. I think we'll take a little bit of a poll, because oftentimes when I'm looking into these earnings reports, I feel like sometimes I could read into the numbers a little bit too much. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? So here's an example, or an alleged example. So Uber reported earnings. They actually had a really good quarter, by the way, really good quarter. But something in the report really caught my eye, and here's what it was. They said they had a record number of signups for people signing up to be an Uber driver, right? So at first glance, you'd say, oh wow, that's really good news for Uber. But the only thing that I thought of immediately was, interesting. Why do we think that there's more people than ever in any quarter in Uber's history that are signing up to be drivers? Is that because the economy is taking a turn for the worse and people are trying to just keep up and make ends meet to keep up with inflation? Obviously, we got a 9.1% CPI print. Or am I just reading it? Or am I just reading into this too much? It could be I'm just reading into it too much. But that's sort of the first thing that popped in my mind. If you have a record number of people, or an influx of people signing up to be drivers, and it just so correlates with some of the highest inflation we've been having in 40 years, and 2 consecutive negative prints of GDP, is that crazy to think that? What do you guys think? Hey everybody, we have the one and only Sunshine NYC. Good to see you. What's up? Sunshine NYC, always a pleasure. Hopefully you're having a fantastic start to your August. Dan Zhang says, Tom, maybe it's because people need extra cash and now they are trying to do side hustles. Yeah, so that's what I thought too. And again, let me clarify that. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm not saying, oh, it's bad, or I'm not knocking anybody for doing it. I'm just trying to think as an analyst here, a financial analyst, to say, okay, what is this? Could we pull any leading indicators here, right? So if the stars are aligning and you're saying we have 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, if we have inflation at a 40-year high, and you have the gig economy really ramping up here, and I would consider driving for Uber part of the gig economy. I would consider that part of the gig economy. Are people forced into doing these jobs now to make extra cash just to be able to pay their overhead because inflation's so high? Who knows? Yeah, so Two Wheel Freedom says extra cash on the side with flexible hours also makes sense. That's true. That's true. So here's a little bit of anecdotal data. So I was talking to one of my Uber drivers in Miami, Florida. And he essentially, was telling he used to do construction back in the day. We were talking, and he's like, I make a little bit less doing Uber. He said he makes $70,000 a year. Now, I'm not sure if he's telling the truth, but he said he made $70,000 a year driving for Uber in Miami, Florida, which is about $20,000 less than he made as a construction worker. But he said it's worth it for him to do that because he could work on his own time, he could pick his kids up from school, and it's a lot less stress. Now, hey, do whatever you want. Maybe that's a good idea for him, because at the end of the day, if you think about it, if you could set your own hours, and I think the pandemic really taught everybody that work-life balance is, really at the forefront. So maybe a lot of other people are starting to think like him. It's possible. It's possible. Yes, Jared Covey, thank you. So Jared Covey says there's the highest consumer debt. We did just hit an all-time record high of $16 trillion. Yeah, that's right. Rusty Golfer said second job increases is a bad sign. Yeah, so that's how I took it. right? But sometimes I like to stop myself and say, okay, I think I'm reading into this a little bit too much, but that's the first thing I thought of. So you have a quarter where Uber posts record amount of drivers signing up. Could that be sort of a leading indicator, or maybe even a lagging indicator, just to confirm the negative GDP prints, saying, look, inflation's ramping. People are trying to figure out what to do to make a little extra cash. Who knows? Ruby Falcone, always good to see you. Welcome. Hey, Don Smith says, anyone see the $5 million Mickey Mantle rookie card? I did not see that. I always find it insane how collectibles like that could sell for so much money. It's insane. I think this is one of my favorite shots in the city, everybody. We are standing directly across the street from the Stephen Schwarzman building, the New York Public Library, one of my favorite buildings in the city. Now, Stephen Schwarzman is very famous figure on Wall Street, made the vast majority of his money doing LBOs or leverage buyout deals. So there was an article in the Wall Street Journal today. I actually think I retweeted it on Twitter. I posted it on Twitter. That merger and acquisition or M&A deals have fallen off a cliff. And it's funny that they said that in the Wall Street Journal, because we've been talking about that on the streams for probably 2 months now. Does anybody remember our conversations about that? So in the article, they were talking about how deal flow, or a lot of companies are deciding not to sell because they think that they can get higher valuations, and now that the market is depressed, they're getting lower offers, or they want to conserve cash and hold off on any acquisitions, things like that. To which I say, yeah, I mean, that's pretty obvious. And the last part of the article was sort of maybe like a paragraph saying how a lot of the investment bankers are upset because they are getting lower than normal bonuses. I think they quoted one investment banker from Citi saying, this is ridiculous, I only got a $45,000 bonus this year. What am I doing? Why don't I just go work at a boutique investment bank and make double that? To which I say, you're an investment banker. You should know your business better than anybody else. And you should understand that in 2021, you probably made yourself an absolute small fortune. Because in 2021, we set absolute records in relation to not only merger and acquisition deals, but IPO deals, right? So the deal flow was insane. And that's obviously due to the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates, flooding the system with money, buying mortgage-backed securities and US Treasuries. So 2021 was an absolute boom for Wall Street investment banking fees, equity underwriting fees, just deal making in general, IPO underwriting, things like that. So bonuses, since profits were higher, obviously bonuses were a lot higher in 2021. So I don't think there's really room for complaints. I mean, obviously, if fee income is down, right? If just generally speaking, and I think many of you do work in banking here. Generally speaking, if you work in investment banking, you know that the vast majority of revenue generated is from fee income, right? Whether that be advisory fees, equity underwriting fees. You make a lot of money on the fee income when you're billing your clients for advice or whatever. You get the picture. So if we know the statistic, and the statistic is that IPO activity is down 97% year over year, well, obviously that's going to translate into much lower fee income. Thus, bonuses are going to be a lot smaller. So, I don't know, that's my 2 cents on that. I just thought it was interesting because there was an article today in the Wall Street Journal. Hey, we have Matthew P. joining us. Good evening, Tom, old chap. Welcome. Hey, Irish Dillons is having an ice cold glass. Nice, good to see you. I'm not sure what that is, but nice. Kevin Baker says, I only made what some people make in a year with a bonus. Yeah, I know. Right? I mean, oh my God. Yeah, so Kevin, it's sort of like tone deaf, right? Yeah, that's fun. Wow, that's funny. Yes, yeah, Kevin is like, yeah, these, and look, hey, that's what a lot of people on Main Street are also saying too. They're like, oh, go cry me a river. you're crying about your $50,000 bonus. That's how much, I think the average salary in America is what, $55,000, the average income. And these bankers are complaining because they had a little bit of a light bonus year due to M&A activity slowing down and IPO activity. I get that. Yeah, a little bit of tone deaf there. Yeah, so photos from around New York, says Tom. We're walking to the Brooklyn Bridge tonight. We are. I know it's going to be a little bit of a change of scenery for everybody tonight, but I think it's appropriate. I kind of want to walk outside of Midtown. And ever since I've been working up towards Park Avenue, I feel like we've been streaming like the same route. So I think I want to send it all the way to Brooklyn Bridge tonight. Also, I think we want to try to increase the amount of steps we take. So if you guys don't follow me on Twitter, I posted it on Twitter. I believe in July, we averaged about 17,000 steps a day for the streams. I think I want to try to round that out at 20,000 steps. I think we could do it. And also just to quickly touch on something here, I get a lot of emails saying, you're always out really late streaming and walking around, don't you get tired? I've actually seen a big pickup in my productivity since I've started streaming. And I don't know why that is. I think it's for a couple reasons. If you're doing, 7 to 8 miles a night while doing a lesson plan and talking to other people, I think it's pretty mentally stimulating, and it probably builds a lot of cardio. So when I go to sleep, I actually feel extremely, extremely wide awake the next morning for sure. This isn't my real name, says hell yeah. After this brutal job search, I can't wait to start taking long walks in the evening. 20K is fantastic. Says this isn't my real name, Google. Good to see you. Kevin Bakers has spent a few days in the city about 2 weeks ago. My highest day was just under 28,000 steps. Dude, that's good, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it's very easy to do, like 28,000, 30,000 steps, especially if you are just a tourist in the city and you're just kind of crushing around. All good, all good. NMB 042 or 45 says the record 2021 bonuses they had earned were perhaps spent lavishly. Yeah, that's true. Hence the complaint about this year with the lower bonuses. I also think it has to do with the work life, for the work-life balance, I think. Because in all fairness, I have a lot of friends in investment banking, and they really, really were pushed to the limit in 2021. I mean, they were worked like dogs in 2021. Some investment bankers could work, 75 hours a week, maybe 80 hours a week. It just depends. So they definitely earned their keep. I'm not going to say like they don't earn it. They definitely earn their keep, but I think a lot of people, especially now with the introduction of normalization of work from home, remote work, a lot of people are starting to ask themselves, if I could just make $20,000 less a year, $30,000 less per year to be able to work from home, spend time with my family, is that worth it? I don't know. I think a lot more people are gonna start to do that cost-benefit analysis and say, well, maybe, $20,000 less a year is worth less to me than being able to, take my kid to school in the morning and pick them up and see all of their, this dog is fantastic, see all their soccer games and things like that, which I think it's a very fair point. I think that's fair, especially if you have a family, you want to spend as much time with your family as possible. I get that. So everybody, check this out. This is one of my favorite views, and then we're going to head down to the Brooklyn Bridge. So we are in Bryant Park, and we have a beautiful view of One Vanderbilt. Dan Zhang says, I'm so glad I picked to be an actuary instead of investment banker after college. I do have a lot of work-life balance. There you go. FredX says, Tom acknowledged the dog drink. Yeah, so FredX has a whole Walks on Wall Street drinking game going on, which is hilarious. Google says, yeah, lots of my friends actually moved out of the city after going remote. I'm still a workaholic at the moment. I prefer to be in the office. So I think I do too, generally. Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, I mean, I think I've told this story before. You know, I was in a studio apartment in Manhattan, and I was literally banging my head up against the wall almost every day. Like, I couldn't take being remote. And this is when I worked for my previous company, so, you know, it was a little bit more structure. I had to be on these conference calls. You know, I had to do product demos, and I was like, oh my God. It was not good. Let's just say that. It was not good because essentially everything was closed in the city, right? So if I wanted to take a 15-minute lunch break or a 15-minute, I guess you could just call it like coffee break or something, I'd have to go all the way down to one of the coffee shops that was open. The only coffee shop that was open had a ridiculous line in it because you couldn't sit down, and they handed you the coffee through like a little slot in the window, and it was freezing, absolutely freezing. And then I would walk all the way back to my little studio apartment, in which case I would hibernate in there until about 7 o'clock at night, and then I'd walk outside and it's pitch black. So the pandemic really put a number on a lot of people. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about, you know, just being outside, walking around. And I think that coincides with a piece of economic data that we got out. So one of the anchors on CNBC, and I apologize so much, I think I butchered his name yesterday, but yesterday it was very hot and humid, so I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name. I don't mean to offend anybody, and I mean that. But Carl, an anchor at CNBC, I don't want to pronounce his last name wrong. I know I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong. But posted a chart from the Financial Times that showed the amount of people cooking from home and making dinners inside during the pandemic, and then once things started to open. It's literally like a hockey stick chart up and to the right, which essentially means humans are always going to revert back to their normal social norms, right? Humans are creatures of habit. Humans are creatures of influence, I'd like to say, and also creatures of connection, right? You need that human connection. So once things started to open, especially in New York, major cities like Miami, everybody's out. Everybody's going out to eat, and that's why, you know, even if we take a step further and we take a deep dive into a lot of the earnings on Wall Street from the financials, a lot of the CEOs from a lot of these top banks said the same exact thing. The moment the economy started to open, consumers didn't stop spending. They just reappropriated their spending to something else. So instead of ordering packages off of Amazon, instead of spending money on subscriptions, they started to book flights, stay in hotels, and eat out in restaurants. And I think that's probably what it's going to be like for some time now. I don't think a pandemic is enough to change our fundamental behaviors, but that's just me. King Tania, yes, there you go. That's one of the things I need. But what do you guys in the chat think? Do you guys agree with what I'm saying, or would you give pushback on that? I mean, what are you guys doing in your lives? Are you booking any trips this summer? Are you planning on going anywhere, or has your spending habits changed at all? I know mine has. You know, I think about a month ago in the Behind the Street newsletter, I told you guys my spending has essentially just reappropriated to flights, taking clients out to dinner. I think the amount I've spent on airfare in 2020 to 2022 has gone up 350%. Now, some of that is obviously inflationary pressures, right? So the flights that I would take from New York City to Fort Lauderdale or Miami for $50, now they're $150. So some of that is inflation, some of that is just more increased frequency of travel. Tea Cakes Jane says, Tom, I've been doing a lot of staycations instead of vacations. Okay. So here we are at the Bank of China, speaking of Nancy Pelosi, making her way to Taiwan. You know, and I've been seeing a lot of disturbing headlines actually coming across the terminal today about how China is all bent out of shape and saying that there'll be severe repercussions now that Nancy Pelosi touched down in Taiwan, which I just don't get it. If we really just consider this to what it is, this is a free person just traveling to another free country.
So I don't know what the whole stigma is, and I understand that they're trying to play hardball, but at the end of the day, hopefully everything just remains peaceful, because supposedly there were some rumors, but I think by and large a lot of those rumors are just that, rumors. I don't think China is actually going to take military action from this. Hey, Carson is here, says, evening Tom, China has been all talk up to this point. Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been thinking too, but then again, I'm not a big on foreign policy, but I don't think there's actually going to be any credible threats. I don't think that China is going to, because here was the headline that I saw, and it actually came from the Wall Street Journal, that China was supposedly threatening military action on some select US equipment sites. I doubt that. Sparks Carnival says, today the microchip production bill was signed by the president. Yeah, it was, and AMD also reported earnings too, everybody. So today was a really busy day on Wall Street. Action-packed day. AMD reported a pretty good quarter too. I think they beat on both the top and the bottom line. But the only thing is, the stock is down, I think, about 6% after hours. And here's what I think, and we've talked about this before, but chip companies or semiconductor companies especially are up against really tough comps, like really tough comps. So comps or comparables essentially means, think about, and I'll explain this again, think about what happened in 2020. We had the COVID pandemic. Essentially the entire world shut down, came to a standstill. Once things started to open back up, when we had unbelievable monetary policy by Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, lowering interest rates, buying mortgage-backed securities, buying US Treasuries, demand came back, gangbusters, roared back, and the demand came back before the supply chains could heal. So you had in a massive amount of supply chain, I would just say, havoc and nightmarish conditions, number one. Then you had massive demand for remote work because nobody could go to the office. So companies around the world, in the Fortune 500, Fortune 50, all the way down to your local mom and pop shop, they had to literally build a decentralized workforce environment in 3 months. So what does that mean? They had to buy computers, they had to buy routers, they had to build out SD-WAN networks, they had to buy software products, and all of that stuff. They had to buy smartphones, tablets, and all of those products that they had to buy. What is the number one ingredient? I'm going to use ingredient because I think it sounds funny. What is the number one ingredient in all of those products? It's chips, it's semiconductors, right? If you buy a laptop, you're going to have semiconductors in there. If you buy a mobile phone, there's going to be chipsets in there. If you buy mining equipment, if you buy routers, right, like a Category 5 or Cat 6 router, if you're building out, let's say, an SD-WAN architecture, that all takes chips. So essentially you had probably about 5 years of buying activity pulled forward into 20 months. So of course, we're not going to beat by 100%. We're not going to beat revenue estimates by 100% anymore, right? Things are probably going to get back to normal. So even though NVIDIA did beat on revenue and EPS, it just wasn't the monstrous beats like we're used to the last year, because we're up against ridiculously unrealistic and unsustainable numbers. So hopefully that makes sense. Zay Batata says, Tom, you're right, but server/cloud and electric cars will mostly sustain their business. That is true. So cloud computing, you're right. EVs. So Zay Batata makes a good point. And I think we've said this before. If you think about semiconductors or chips in relation to EVs or electric vehicles, it takes twice the amount, so 2 times as many chips to make one EV than it does a traditional internal combustion engine car. 2 times the amount of semiconductors. So if these projections are correct, and I don't really want to debate if they're going to be correct, But if the projections about all new cars that are being sold by 2030 are going to be EVs, that's pretty sustained demand for chips. Right now, I understand that there's many different categories for chipsets, right? You could have chips that go into mining equipment, chips that go into smartphones or handsets, and the like, but I think the demand is still pretty sustainable. Wow, the ABX girl says, Tom, my husband sells high-end autos, MSRP of $50K, minimum parking lots of Benz, BMW, Maserati, etc. Empty, no chips, no cars. Oh my gosh, that's insane. That's insane, the ABX girl. So check out this view, everybody. This is insane view. But if you guys are enjoying the stream so far, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. We'd love to have you back. Tortellini says hello from Michigan. Welcome everybody from Michigan. Atomic Skittles 678 says, Tom, what is your opinion on the Nancy Pelosi Taiwan situation? Do you think she should have gone? I think if she wants to go, she should go. I briefly did give my opinion on that, but I'll give my opinion on that again. I think it's going to be a non-issue, but then again, I'm 0-1 for foreign policy predictions if you've been watching the streams. So maybe I'll be 0-2, who knows. This is what I don't think will happen. I don't think there'll be any military repercussions to Nancy Pelosi making a trip to Taiwan. That I would just, my head would be blown off if that actually happened. I think it's just China trying to play strong arm, right? But think about it like this. If Nancy Pelosi didn't go to Taiwan after China advised not to go, the United States would look very, very weak. So I think it's like we almost had to go, in my opinion. Hey, John Roberts says, hey everybody watching from Wyoming. Hey, good to see Wyoming in the house. We are on the corner of Herald Square and 34th Street Broadway. Beautiful night. Yeah, Dr. Longest says, I don't think so either, Tom. I guess we'll have to see. Google says, Nikki Kennedy, I have friends from CUNY who work in IB and do as well. Yeah, I mean, I went to CUNY. I went to CUNY schools. Nikki Kennedy says, hey Tom, would you recommend CUNY for a finance degree? My daughter is thinking of applying. Yeah, I would. I would actually recommend Baruch College. So I'll tell you a funny story. I really wanted to go to Baruch, obviously, right? Because I had a big interest in finance. At the time, maybe I didn't have as big of an interest in finance as I do now. But I actually didn't get in. I didn't get into Baruch. I pretty much didn't get in anywhere except John Jay. So I think if your daughter is thinking about going for finance specifically, and if you're a New Yorker, you're from New York, born and raised, I would definitely go to Baruch because you're probably not going to pay anything to go there. I know I didn't pay much. I paid like a couple $1,000. I think if you're, a New York State resident, the tuition is very affordable. So I would apply to Baruch, Bernard Baruch College. I think it's a fantastic university. I think the CUNY system's great. But again, you get what you pay for. So if she wants like the real college experience of, partying and hanging out, you're not going to get that. It's sort of like nose to the grindstone. Everybody at CUNY, you go to school and then you go to work. That's what I did. I went to school, took the classes, then I went to work. It's not like party central. Bob. Don Smith says 35 million more males than females in China. The ABX girl says Baruch rocks for finance and money saving too. Yeah, I agree. I agree with the ABX girl. I think Baruch actually may be nationally ranked for their finance program. Is that true? Business Mail says shortage of semi-trucks over the past year. Many trucks were sitting at the factory waiting for chips. Yeah, you're right. Pat says, yep, only the occasional social mixers at CUNY. Yeah, everybody's pretty much just doing their own thing because, at least from the people that I met at CUNY, we're all pretty much in the same boat, right? Pretty much everybody's from New York. And if you're from New York and you're not wealthy, you got to work, right? So many of my friends would actually have to work and then, chip in and help the family pay rent and all that stuff. So you're not going to get like the college experience, but I think you're going to get a good experience on what the real world is like. Someone's really hurting in there. That's horrible. Google says CUNY is high school 2.0 for sure, but it was worth it personally for me. Yeah, I mean, same here. But again, I'm not a big partier. I'm not a big, look, I just want to get the education and I want to get out of there. Okay, I just want to go do what I have to do and I'm out. I want to go to work. If you don't want to do that, well then go somewhere else. But if you want to save money and just skate by and do your thing, I think CUNY is a good choice. Nikki Kennedy says we live in Chicago. Any good schools out here in Chicago? I'm not too familiar with Chicago, to be quite honest. I had a friend who was an analyst at Citadel, but now I think he's going to be transitioning to the New York office now. But yeah, if I had to recommend a college for finance specifically, where you're probably going to get a decent bid into an investment bank, I think, and you don't want to break the bank, right? This isn't like a top 50 school. If you want to pay a couple $1,000 a semester, go to Baruch. Go to Baruch. That's what I'd say. Yeah, Don Smith's like, when do you think the UE is going to run out of natural gas? NMB 045 says Tom's motto should be cutting the BS and white noise. It's live stream time. Yeah, that's true. NMB 045. Good to see you, man. Hey, Kaka Silva says, hello, is Riverdale a nice place? It is. I think Riverdale's up there in the Bronx. Cowabunga Simpson says the Girl Scouts of Greater New York likes to help New Yorkers. That's good news. I love to hear that. Well, right on time, we have the Mighty Bowl. Good to see you, the Mighty Bowl. Hopefully your August is off to a great start. Really quickly, everybody, I wanted to touch on a software company, an enterprise software company, that actually reported earnings after the bell yesterday. So the company is called Zoom Info, and you could find it under the ticker symbol ZI. Wow, what's going on over here? Looks like there's all like balloons or something blowing up here. So you could find it under the ticker symbol ZI. Now this isn't, the reason why I'm bringing this up is not a recommendation to purchase the security, is I want to quickly recap on some of the key characteristics that we should all be looking for when a company reports earnings. So I have a few criteria that I've learned from some of my buddies who run hedge funds that actually look at this criteria to put on a watch list or something like that. But the number one thing you want to look for is a company that is growing their revenues at least 25% quarter over quarter, right? And this is year over year. You want to look for a company that is growing their EPS, right, or earnings per share. The acronym stands for earnings per share, about 25% plus quarter over quarter. You want to make sure the company has very healthy and very high pre-tax and after-tax margins. So as we sort of review through the stream, you'll find out, a common trend that a lot of software companies tend to have really, really high gross margins. And you also want fairly high return on equity, roughly about 35 to 40% ROE or return on equity. And then I'm going to give you a bonus to look for, not only from an investment standpoint, but from a standpoint if you're interested in working at one of these enterprise software or tech companies as a salesperson selling into the enterprise, right? So as yesterday we reviewed, you're not going to start off your sales career in software sales selling into Fortune 500 companies. It's just not going to happen. But where you do start off is a position called an SDR or a BDR. which they are defined as a sales development representative or a business development representative. And then the goal from there is to be promoted to account executive, in which case you are selling into the SMB space, which is small to medium-sized businesses. They tend to have very short sales cycles. And then as you get older and you hit your numbers, you slowly progress up to middle market account executive. And then the goal is to reach enterprise level. Okay, and the reason why you want to, if you're looking to be a salesperson at a software company or a tech company, the reason why you want to get into the enterprise is because the salaries tend to be extremely large, and the commissions or the OTE or the on-target earnings tend to bring you right around 350 to, if you really blow out your quarter or you blow out your quota, you could probably, the upper end, I know some enterprise software salespeople doing $750 to $900,000 a year. So here's a little piece of information that you should look for. Let's say if you have your sights set on a software company, you're like, I really want to be an enterprise account executive. Watch when they report earnings, assuming they're publicly traded. And I want you to scroll down to some of the notes. So usually the CEO will give, when they give their guidance, they'll also give a metric of businesses or deals closed when the deal was in excess of 100,000 ARR. And ARR stands for annually reoccurring revenue. And the reason why that's important is because if you go work at a tech company and they say, oh yeah, we have 2 customers that are billing 100,000 or more ARR. Well, that probably means they don't have that much of a strong foothold in the enterprise. So if you can find a software company that is consistently growing the amount of customers that are billing at $100,000 or more ARR, that's proof of concept. And the reason why I say that is because from my experience being an enterprise salesperson, the sales cycles are extremely lengthy, and the diligence that takes place at a Fortune 500, Fortune 50 company, Fortune 100 is extremely high. So there's not only one decision maker, there's maybe 3 or 4 or 5. It has to pass compliance, it has to pass through operations, it has to pass through the chief technology officer and the IT department. So in order for a piece of software, or maybe you're selling hardware, a piece of hardware to pass through all of those departments and get the green light for implementation, that's proof of concept in and of itself. So that usually means it's probably going to be an easier time to sell to different enterprise customers, right? So the deal size increases, the commissions tend to increase, because if you're selling a $100,000 piece of software, ARR, and the gross margins are 80%, I mean, you just do the rough math on what you think the commissions would be. So for Zoom Info, I think they closed the quarter with about 30,000 customers. But here's the kicker. Of those 30,000 customers, they have 1,763 customers billing $100,000 or greater in annual contract value, or ARR. And I think that's up about 54 customers from the same quarter last year. So there's just a little tidbit, little piece of advice. That's definitely a big key metric to look for as you go through those earnings reports. David C. Randall, hey David, what's up? This is long tail sales indeed. Yes, the sales cycles are definitely a lot longer. Says David, even longer in government and education sales. Yes. So David Randall makes a good point. It takes a very, very disciplined and very well-connected type of person to really, really be successful in SLED, which is like government, education, public sector sales. Because I've done a little bit, I've dabbled in public sector sales a little bit. It's not really my thing. There's a lot to learn there though. I think if you do go into public sector sales, you have to really understand government contracts, if you're on the state contractors list, because essentially any deal that the governments do, they have to put it out for bid, right? So there'll be like an RFP, it'll go out to bid, and your particular company will have to get on that state contractors list in order for them to even buy from you. So it's really, really an uphill battle for sure, public sector sales. UniJ22 is here. Says, hey, Tom and all. Welcome. Good to see you. Wow, I mean, is it me or is it just an absolutely electric night out here in New York for a Tuesday? This is good news. Things are coming back. For a Tuesday, New York is absolutely going gangbusters. Yeah, Ruby Falcone says those lights look nice tonight. I think this is the Smith restaurant, Ruby. So there's also another one on the Upper West, right across from Lincoln Center. There's also a Smith over there. I've been to that one. It's all right. It's a good restaurant. Yeah, photos from around New York's like, Tom, the gelato place to the right is always packed. It is. Hey, Sophie M is here. What's up, Sophie? Good to see you. Gregory is here. Nice. Good to see you, Gregory. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody's chats. John Roberts says, Tom, is Macy's still open in New York or did they shut it down? No, it's still open. It's still open. It's still open for sure. So anyway, back to, we're headed to the Brooklyn Bridge tonight. But anyway, the last thing I'll say about Zoom Info, so they did beat on both the top and the bottom line. So they beat on revenue and they beat on earnings per share. But even more importantly than that, they actually raised forward guidance. Okay, so one of my good friends, again, I sort of work off of his roadmap. You got to look for, and again, at the end of the day, it all boils down to fundamentals. If the company is growing their earnings or compounding out their earnings every single quarter, over time the stock should go up, right? With exceptions, obviously, if it's trading at a ridiculous valuation. But over time, institutional investors will be attracted to that specific company because they have a very, very stable revenue stream. They have very stable earnings, return on equity, cash flows, the whole nine. So if we want to look at revenue, again, revenue came in at $267.1 million. That is an increase of 54% year over year for Zoom Info. Operating income came in at $39.5 million and adjusted operating income of $106.9 million. Cash flow from operations came in at $106.2 million and unlevered free cash flow came in at $108.3 million. And again, to close out the Zoom Info conversation, they have totaling 30,000 customers, but the most important thing that we like to look for are their customers that bill an average of $100,000 or more, and that hit an all-time record high of 1,763 customers for the quarter. Now let's head down to the Brooklyn Bridge. I think we're making good time, everybody. This is West 26th Street, so we've been streaming about an hour, so I think we're right on time. I think we should probably reach the Brooklyn Bridge at like the 2-hour mark, maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes. Joan is here. Good to see you, Joan. Hope you're doing well. Ruby Falcone says time check 9:42. Thank you, Ruby. Appreciate that. Always keeping us on time. Hey, Anthony Kopp is here. Good to see you, Anthony. Yeah, so we are in the middle of a heat wave in New York City, and it's definitely feeling hot. And you guys know me. I don't really mind the humidity, but to be honest, the humidity is pretty nasty tonight. I think it's about 50% humidity, and tomorrow's going to be even hotter. But I'll take the heat and humidity over the cold any day of the week. Photos from around New York's like the Brooklyn Bridge about an hour away. Depending on how many times we stop to turn around to look at the Empire State Building, I say we'll probably get there in about an hour and 15 minutes. But if I do my usual stargazing at the Empire, we may tack on a couple extra minutes there. So, Google says I had jury duty today, and the second I stepped out, it was melting. It was so hot. Yeah. So now we're passing Madison Square Park. Hey, Deborah says, Tom, are you back in Miami soon? So that is to be determined. But yes, relatively soon, yes. But the exact date, I just don't know the exact date yet. So on the corner here of 24th Street, this is Italy, which is a fantastic Italian restaurant / grocery store, Italy. I'm sure many of you have been. I think one of our moderator, Lady O, loves this place. Hey, Veronica G says, hey Tom, I'm coming to New York this weekend for a girls trip. Keep an eye out on the weather. I think the weather should be all right this weekend. Maybe it's a little bit too early to predict, but hopefully the weather is all clear and that you have a blast. I think you're gonna have a good time. You know, I'm gonna make a suggestion if you don't mind. If you wanna go to a place that is really, really unique, that I think you're gonna like a lot, visit this restaurant called Mel's. So it's spelled M-E-L-S. And it's right in the Chelsea market. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Check out Mel's. Actually, it's my friend's restaurant. My friend is one of the chefs there. That place is fantastic. Very, very good place. So we're actually walking outside of the Flatiron building. We are in the Nomad district of New York. It's good to see Eric Tate. Welcome. Veronica G says, thank you for the suggestion. No problem. Yeah, you're not going to be disappointed there. Definitely not going to be disappointed. Very unique place. So check this out, everybody. This is my favorite view of the Empire. If you want to see it for yourself, come on down to 5th Avenue and 24th Street. I'd say East 23rd Street, give or take a block, doesn't matter. But absolutely beautiful views of the Empire State Building. I kind of wish we came down here last night. I think last night the Empire State Building was lit up for the 80th birthday. I forget his name. I'm blanking on the name. But somebody in the chat could help me out. But the Empire State Building was fantastic last night. Lemonade says, it's been so hot here in South Dakota, I'm literally running my air conditioner and a fan and a natural heat so far this year. Wow. Yes, Deborah, you're right. 80th birthday of Jerry Garcia. There you go. So the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia, his birthday. Any Grateful Dead fans in the chat? Any Grateful Dead fans in the chat? Oh, everybody, before I forget, I just wanted to review something quickly because we were actually talking about this a little bit yesterday. But I do have to turn around and take another look at the Empire State Building, so we may be a little bit delayed here. So did you guys notice today's stock market action? So as we reviewed on the stream yesterday, this most recent stock market rally correlated exactly with a huge bond buying spree. And what I mean by that is obviously we know bond yields and bond prices have an inverse correlation, meaning when you buy bonds, yields tend to come down, and when people are selling bonds or when you have a sell-off in the bond market, that is when rates spike. So we reviewed the concept that especially when we're talking about the high beta tech stocks in general, these companies tend to have earnings priced out in the future. Okay, and those stocks tend to perform really, really well when rates are low. When rates are high, the future value of those earnings are now worth less today because interest rates are higher. Does everybody understand that? So something that was interesting that happened today is we had a massive move in the bond market. The 10-year US Treasury yield was up 9% in a single day. That means there was huge turbulence and a massive sell-off in the bond market. And then what happened? The markets dropped today. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average finishing in the red. Now, I'm not saying this is an exact science, but usually if let's say if you use tradingview.com, which is a free charting software, I always like to look at the bond market. You guys know that I always say this, I hammer it into your heads. The stock market is a derivative, or I believe the stock market is a derivative of the debt market. So it derives its value from the bond market, right, from the credit markets. So if we know that, why wouldn't we want to keep our eyes peeled on that 10-year US Treasury yield? So as yields come down, generally speaking, stocks go up, and as yields go up, which they've done over the past, I'd say 6 months, starting in January, February till now, we've had a huge rout in tech. So it was just something interesting I noticed today in today's stock market action of yields really catching a nice bid in those yields today. Jonathan Francis oil, a 5-month low now. Yeah, I think the high in crude, or ticker symbol CL, the crude oil futures, was right around where? March? I think we're actually streaming it. I think crude hit $130 a barrel. Really wild.
I think it could have been like one of those people that
All right, everybody, we have to put a little bit of pep in our step here. Yeah, James's yields through the roof today. Indeed, they were. Mike Cease's 10-year can't seem to make it up to its mine between 2.6 and 3%. I know. We'll cross because we got to make good time, everybody. You know, the good news is we're probably going to be able to walk through Washington Square Park tonight, which we haven't been through Washington Square Park in a long time. Atomic Skittles says, Tom, do you plan on walking to Little Italy or Soho? Yeah, we may do that tonight. So on our way to the Brooklyn Bridge, we may do that tonight. So stay tuned for that. I just didn't notice, everybody. We've already been streaming for an hour and a half. I got to make sure we make time to actually get to the Brooklyn Bridge tonight. Hey, Jackie New York is joining us. Good to see you, Jackie. Always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Sparks Carnival says, Tom, the U.S. household debt surpassed $16 trillion for the first time ever, according to the New York Federal Reserve. Yeah, I did see that, which to me it's concerning because if we explore that a little bit, what do we think that means? So, what do we think that means? Here's what I think it means. And then I'd love for you guys to type in the chat what you think it means. But for me, it means that potentially American consumers are forced to dip into their credit cards, or they are forced to rack up the balances on their credit cards to keep up with the pace of inflation. Obviously, that CPI number came out at 9.1%. So let's say if your food bill, your grocery bill is up 20% every single month, and you live on a very tight budget, well, maybe instead of paying your card off every single month on time, you're gonna have to carry a balance, unfortunately. This place is cool. So here's where I'm a little bit concerned in relation to that. If we see, and I'll have to look at some of the bank data, but if we see that the balances on those cards are going up, that's not good because interest rates are going up. And the worst debt that you could possibly carry is credit card debt, because some of these credit cards come with like a 15% to 20% interest rate, which to me is criminal. But so that could thus put even more stress and more strain on the American consumer. But what do you guys think? Are you guys sort of formulating the same opinion that I am? Am I off base here? What do you guys think? Yeah, bagels and walks like it's always gelato o'clock. I can get behind that. Yeah, John says, too bad they didn't pass another stimulus check right now because of the inflation. Yeah, everybody got $1,200 and in return we got 9% inflation. Ridiculous. Sparks Carnival says, continue to invest in stocks due to the fears of recession. I would say so. I mean, if you look historically, it also depends on your age, right? Let's say if you're an 18, 19-year-old kid coming out of college, I would probably, right now, if I was 18, 19 again, I'd probably invest like 90% of my income in equities. Yeah, Carson says, while the savings accounts, savings rates are still getting like 0.01%. Yeah, that's what's ridiculous too. Everybody's talking about I-bonds. They're like, oh, the I-bonds, you know, now carry a pretty decent yield. You can only buy $10,000 worth, right? It's not life-changing. Yeah, James says, this sounds like stagflation of the 70s all over again. Jonathan Francis is exactly, keep your stimulus. Well, here's some good news. Okay, now that we've been talking about some bad news, here, let's try to take a look on the optimistic side, at least a little bit. I think we could do that, right? Are we allowed to do that? I think we're allowed to do that. So we have a little bit of data coming out of the housing market and the rental market that's actually encouraging if you are looking to move into an apartment, let's say in the next 5 to 6 months. We have a little bit of encouraging news that, hold on, let me take this. I'm trying to figure out which way I should take. You know what, I think we have time, everybody. We have time. So we're gonna take a quick walk through Washington Square Park, because we haven't been there in a while. And then we'll head to the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, Tin Man is like shrinkflation as well. I totally agree with that. Has anybody ever tried to buy a bag of chips lately? If you buy a bag of chips, you're pretty much paying 90% for air. It's ridiculous. But here is Union Square Park. Very unique, one of my favorite parks. Yeah, Wendy England says Tom's gonna be walking at midnight. Hey, Anthony says apartments are crazy. I just signed a 5K lease in the East Village. Well, first and foremost, congratulations on the apartment. 5K, dang, man. Anthony, you living with roommates or are you living by yourself? If you don't mind us asking. But dang, $5,000 in the East Village. God, man, it's crazy. But I'm sure your place is beautiful, dude. I'm sure your place is beautiful. So everybody, so here's the good news. I'll get right to the chase. So the average apartment, talking about rents, they rose 9.4% in the second quarter of 2022 compared with the same quarter in 2021. It is now down from the more than 11% annual increase from the previous 2 quarters. So we've been seeing 11% increase, 11% increase, 13%. Now we're just starting to potentially develop a trend of deceleration, which is actually very good. And the reason why this is good is for 2 reasons. The first reason is a big portion of CPI is calculated based off of rental values. A big portion of the CPI is based off of the price that people pay for the rents, the landlords, what they pay, the appraisals, what they could actually get if they rented their homes, things like that. So based off of that data, and if we know, if you're talking like a stock speculator here, by and large, equities are going to have an easier time of going up if the Federal Reserve stops raising interest rates. And the only way that the Federal Reserve is going to stop raising rates is if they see inflation cooling, is if they see that CPI come down. Now, it's not just the CPI that needs to come down, it's the core CPI. So the Fed usually will look at the core CPI because it excludes the very volatile food and energy prices, right? I personally don't agree with that, excluding food and energy prices, but that's what the Federal Reserve wants to look at. So we could potentially be seeing, I would say, a slightly lower than normal or lower than projected CPI print next month, because not only are rents starting to cool off here a bit, but commodities have just gotten crushed. Okay, we did an entire stream last night where we talked about the manufacturing sector, and almost every single respondent said the same thing. Inventories are building, the prices of raw materials are coming down. You look at lumber, you look at copper, you look at the price of crude oil, things are coming down. So even though we got a really, really hot print last month at 9.1%, the next 2 months we could cool off here a bit. And if we don't cool off next month, it's probably going to take 2 months for these pieces of new data to actually hit the CPI. Wow, everybody check that out. This is the Empire State Building. I mean, my God. The World Trade Center. We've been in Midtown way too long when I mistake the World Trade Center for the Empire. Beautiful view. And we are making good time. Okay, let me cross here. We're at University Place. We're about to be on the campus of New York University very soon. Mike C says, Tom, do you see gold breaking 1,500 or 2,000 first? Here, I'm going to give a very blunt answer. I will never get involved in gold unless it breaks new all-time record highs. Because in my view, I will never own gold unless I'm using it as like a momentum trade or something like that. If it has a breakout from all-time record highs, okay, maybe I'll get long and maybe have an allocation of like 10% of the portfolio or something like that. But besides that, I kind of take Warren Buffett's stance on it. If it doesn't produce anything, gold just sits there. It doesn't produce cash flows, it doesn't have any earnings, and it doesn't have any of the properties that apply to my life. I don't know, I don't really want to get involved in it. I do have an allocation to Bitcoin though. And many of you in the chat will say, well, isn't it the same argument for Bitcoin? It doesn't produce anything, it doesn't produce any free cash. To which I would say, yeah, you're right, it doesn't. But as we reviewed, here's and I'm not saying to buy it, I'm not saying to sell it, I'm just saying my personal opinion on it. The property that attracted me to have a portion of my net worth be in Bitcoin is the fact that it's unconfiscatable. Not the fact that a lot of these crypto crazies out here say, oh, it's going to go to the moon and all this stuff. It's irrelevant to me. I actually don't care where it goes. Serious, I don't. What I care about is the value proposition for me to potentially have a vertical or a vehicle to put 5 to 10% of my net worth in it, keep it at that allocation, right? For basic portfolio management. If it goes down, that means you add more. If it goes up, you trim. That's totally and truly unconfiscatable, right? Physical assets, right? If there's an Armageddon situation, your house is confiscatable, but nobody knows my private keys. It's literally memorized in my head. So theoretically, somebody could move $100 million worth of Bitcoin around the world by just memorizing a couple lines of code. And that's the value proposition that I see. It's not for everybody. I'm not endorsing Bitcoin. I'm not saying go buy it. That's what I'm saying. That's the reason why I have an allocation. Bob says, I have been hearing about gold replacing the US dollar since I was born. I do agree with the gold standard, right? I'm definitely not a fan of fiat currencies at all. I think the worst thing that happened for this country is going off the gold standard, but Robert says Bitcoin is very confiscatable. Many people have lost their coins to hackers. So that's true and that's not true. The narrative is, oh, it can get hacked. It can't get hacked. These are people that leave their Bitcoin on centralized exchanges, right? So these are people that are going on Gemini or Coinbase, or way back in the day, Mt. Gox. I'm not sure if anybody on the stream was around to remember that. But if you do not have your private keys, if your Bitcoin is stored on another person's exchange, Even that could be Gemini. I don't care about the Winklevoss twins. I think they're great guys. Doesn't matter. If it's on somebody else's exchange, it's not yours. It's not your private keys. It's not your coins. It's what I believe. So if you literally memorize your private keys, it is unconfiscatable unless somebody can read your mind or gets a hold of your private key somehow. Okay, everybody, we're making great time. But I actually kind of agree with Robert though, because for the vast majority of people, they don't want to do all that work, right? To, put it in cold storage, put it on a paper wallet. And if that's the case, yeah, then you probably shouldn't own any, right? I think it's just based upon your specific use case. Wow, everybody, this is the first time in a long time that we are now in Washington Square Park. Say it.
This dude's a Gaylord.
What does that mean?
You like to suck dick.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Come here, yeah. Come here.
Yeah?
Hey, dick.
What's your name?
Let me see that dick.
Are you coming from work or you don't have a job?
Let me see that.
No job?
Let me see that cocky.
Wearing a dress? Got it.
Let me see that cocky.
Awesome.
This one they brought like vectors down.
So those are what you call the derelicts and the losers that don't have jobs. Anthony's like vagrant to New York. Yeah, so if you travel to Washington Square Park, oftentimes you'll see some derelicts and some scum, but I think that's what makes the park what it is, right? I think that's what makes the park beautiful in a sense.
Si me jodes, te jodes. Yo soy maleante de la calle. Olvida la pena y los dolores.
AT4 nerd. That's funny. All right, everybody, this is officially my favorite part of the park. And if you remember about a year or two ago, we would actually used to do the streams on a skateboarding around here. I kind of miss those days. Maybe we'll bring it back. Maybe we'll bring the board back sooner rather than later. We'll have to see. But the park is awesome tonight. A lot of people out. Hey, Sissis says, oh man, what a set. I haven't been back to New York City since I joined the Army. Well, you got to come back, man. New York is very a unique experience for sure. And this is sort of why I wanted to come down towards Washington Square Park, Little Italy, and Chinatown. Yeah, Sunshine NYC says missed the skateboarding, I know. Yeah, for the people that are, I would say, like the OGs on the streams, we used to do these streams on a skateboard, man. Those were good times. Those were good times. Hey, Austin Tennis is here. So former investment banker turned software salesman. So any updates for us on pager duty? Austin Tennis. Hey, Noah, what's up? Says, how are the casinos in the city doing these days? I don't think there are any casinos in Manhattan, are there? You know, I think there was a brief proposal. Oh, I want to show you guys the NYU Stern building. I think there was a brief proposal to build a casino in Times Square, but I think that would probably be a big disaster in my view. Ryan Royal says, yes, Fountain helping cool me down. Yeah, Mike. So usually I don't say anybody to anybody, but I don't know, for some reason the face of that guy, I didn't like that guy's face. So the ABX girl says no. They're in Empire City in Yonkers, I believe, near the Aqueduct racetracks as well. So I think there's a couple casinos also on Long Island, I believe. I'm trying to think. There definitely is some sort of bet. I mean, obviously there's gambling near the Aqueduct racetrack. because, horse betting. But that is in Ozone Park, Queens. But yeah, I'm definitely against the idea of putting a casino in Times Square. I think it would make Times Square pretty much inoperable. You couldn't do anything there. Sunshine NYC. I'm so glad Sunshine's here. She hasn't been here in a long time. It's always a good time when Sunshine's here. Okay, everybody, so we're about to walk past NYU Stern School of Business. And so I have some good news. So oftentimes on the stream we'll talk about a professor, Professor DeModeran, and he is considered to be the Dean of Valuation. So he's actually a professor of securities analysis here at the Stern School of Business. Oftentimes you will see his content on CNBC and on Bloomberg. He'll make appearances there. So we have some good news. So after many, many years of requests, Professor DeModeran will have his course, his flagship course, I should say, in financial analysis and corporate finance, available online. So we could take this online if you want. So I'm going to be taking it. So I may be a little bit busy this fall because I will be taking that course. I think it's going to be a good refresher, and I think it'll also tie very well into the streams, especially as we have the behind the desk streams coming up. Whenever I get those up, I could do a screen share and we could build discounted cash flow models together and sort of understand the inner workings of how to read a 10K, a 10Q, and go through financial statements and such. But if you don't want to pay for it and you're on a budget, you can get all of this information absolutely 100% free on the internet. So if you go to YouTube where you are right now, what I want you to do is click subscribe to my channel, just kidding. But then after you do that, go to Professor DeModeran's YouTube channel, and oftentimes he'll actually record all of his lectures and post them on YouTube for free. So instead of spending a couple $1,000, $10,000 to actually take the course in person, he posts a lot of the material that he covers in those courses on YouTube and online for free. And if you want to take it a step further, if you go to Amazon.com, if you go to the used book section, you could actually buy the textbook written by Professor DeModeran for like $3 used. That's probably going to be the best return on investment you could ever get in your life. And forget buying a particular stock. Go ahead and buy Professor DeModeran's textbook. Kaka Silva, thank you so much for the $20 donation. Says those guys are weird, but it's best to ignore them. Yeah, so I usually ignore people like 99 to 100% of the time. Pretty much 100% of the time I ignore people, but again, for some reason I just when I see people that are my age, it's just a disappointment. I'm actually just disappointed. So he's a good guy, no hard feelings. Miguel says, have you talked about the CEO of Shopify laying off 10% of his workforce because of his early bet? So, yes, we did. Yeah, so that's a very good point, Miguel. And that actually comes before the CEO of Robinhood announced layoffs today. So even more layoffs at Robinhood today, which is definitely not good for the tech sector. But I don't know. What do you guys think about? Because let's play this scenario through, okay? Let's say if you're a software engineer or something like that at Shopify, you get laid off. Do you really think it's going to be that difficult to find another job in this environment? I don't know. I think you may have a better go about it, especially if you're a software engineer or something like that, or you're in a specific position that really affects top line revenue growth. Because if you're a salesperson or something like that, those jobs are really in demand. So I'm sure, I mean, unfortunately, it's horrible for anybody to get laid off. But I think they'll probably have a pretty easy time to bounce back. I don't know, but what do you guys think? Yeah, Miguel says Shopify's severance package was insane though. They will have no problem finding a job. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I'm thinking. So speaking of severance pay, Miguel, I'm not sure if you were on the stream when we were doing the deep dive into Microsoft's earnings, but I noticed something on the earnings press release that I think a lot of people skipped over. And that was there was an unusually high amount of revenue allocated, or I would just say money allocated at Microsoft last quarter for severance pay. So all of these layoffs, right, especially when you're thinking about these big tech companies, because I know many people who went through this. So I used to do a lot of work with Sprint and T-Mobile when they were doing their merger, right? That was one of the biggest mergers of all time. And unfortunately, you know, due to the merger, a lot of people will get laid off, right? There's departments that shave overhead and on and on and on. I think you get the picture. But the payouts were ridiculous. Really, really big. So I think it's good to put it into perspective, right? Not everything has to be doom and gloom. As Miguel said, look, if you had a job at Shopify and you got laid off, you weren't just kicked out to the street and left to dry. You know, they probably took care of you. If I had to guess, they probably took care of you. You know, just looking at Microsoft's earnings report and that line item that they spent over, I think it was like $100 million on severance pay. May have been a little bit more. I think people were taken care of. But that's my 2 cents. Miguel says that makes sense. Everything is coming back to pre-COVID. Everything is returning to normal. Yeah, I think so too. Hey, Charlie Richardson, good to see you. Always a pleasure, Charlie. Welcome. Yeah, Charlie Richardson is in the chat. He says that software engineers should be able to pivot, no problem. Yeah, if you have a marketable skill, right, or I would say a skill that's in really, really high demand, right, or like software engineering, or even if you do like service desk stuff, I think you're probably going to be fine, in my opinion. Dusty Cole says, hey Tom, was there any Taiwan Pelosi talk earlier? A little bit. We touched on that briefly, Dusty. Look, a lot of people after the bell today, I was watching like Bloomberg for a little bit. AMD was down 6%, and they were saying, you know, maybe it's not because of the earnings report, maybe it's because, you know, she took that visit to Taiwan, and Taiwan has a lot of exposure to semiconductors. I don't really see the correlation there at all, in my view. And again, I could be wrong. I'm not a foreign policy expert. I think China's just trying to flex their muscles, right? And in my opinion, if Nancy Pelosi didn't go to Taiwan when China said, you better not go to Taiwan, how is that going to look on Nancy Pelosi and the Biden administration? It's not going to be a good look at all. You know, it's sort of like you lose if you do, you lose if you don't type of thing. But what do you guys think? I mean, do you think it's going to be a non-issue? Do you think there's really going to be any military type action? I doubt it. I doubt it. Cindy Foley, what's up? Good to see you. Arum Z, I do not have any thoughts on the monkeypox. So everybody, we are approaching one of my favorite areas in the city. Right here and to the left, you're about to see one of my favorite coffee shops in the entire city. It is right in between Bleecker Street, and it is called Black Press Coffee. Fantastic area. Hey, DowJones.eth is here. What's up? Good to see you. It says, if it's in the media, I don't trust it or I question it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think that's one of those topics I'll probably just have to sit out because I think it's going to be a non-issue. I think they're probably going to dress it up. You know, maybe China will just run their mouth, but I don't think there's going to be military action. I think it'd be ridiculous. Like, nobody wants military action just because a person goes to another country. I think it's ridiculous. So right here, everybody, if you come to New York, trust me on this. Just trust me. You got to go here. This place is called, Gasoline Alley Coffee. Black Press Coffee is on 72nd Street. I'm getting all turned around here. But Gasoline Alley Coffee right here. Absolutely fantastic place. Please, please come. Hey, Ved says China's military launches sea and air exercises near Taiwan amid Pelosi's visit. Yeah, but I mean, isn't that just more of like a show of force as opposed to, you know, actual military action? Who knows? Who knows? Well, we're making good time. That's the good news, because we've been streaming for about an hour and 49 minutes. And I think we're making good time. We'll probably hit the Brooklyn Bridge in about 15 minutes. And the views from the Brooklyn Bridge tonight are probably going to be to die for, hopefully, because it doesn't look like the sky is too cloudy tonight.
We're going to have to make a name for ourselves.
Which is good. As we're passing East Houston Street, we just got to make sure we don't get hit by this cab. If I do get hit by the cab, we're probably going to have Ruby. We're going to have to fly Ruby Falcone to take over the streams each night. The Austin Tennis, are we going to walk over the bridge? Absolutely, we're going to walk over the bridge. Absolutely. Which I'm excited about because, you know, at the beginning of the stream, I was telling you guys, it seems like we've been only walking around Midtown East, 57th Street, Central Park South. Which I have a couple reasons for that, but obviously mainly because I work up that way. But I think it's nice to explore another neighborhood, take a little bit longer walk, if you will. So does anybody know what percentage of disposable income, or what percentage of income does the average American spend on rent? Does anybody want to take a guess? We'll have a little bit of trivia tonight on the Walks in Wall Street stream. And whoever guesses it, if you come to New York City, we'll go get coffee, and coffee's on me. And I know the best spots to get coffee here, so you're really not going to want to mess up this trivia question here. NMB 045 coming in with 60%. No, not 60, dude. Jeez. But I'll still buy you a coffee. Don't worry. 45. Ooh, not. No, not. What percent of income do people spend on rent? You guys are really shooting high, man. Sunshine after rain. My God. Sunshine after rain. Coffee is on me, my friend. 30%. 30%, you're right. So check out how crazy this is. And I think 30% is actually quite high. Myra King says 30%, John Roberts 30%. Yeah, so here's some of the preliminary data we've gotten out of the housing market. Wow, check out this. This is like a half Adidas, half Gucci ad here. Interesting. Yeah, Wendy England's like, they probably just Googled it. Maybe. But here's the data that came out. It says rental housing affordability worsened in the year, or the first year of the pandemic. That's obvious. With the share of American renters who pay 30% or more of their income on rent rising 2.6 percentage points. Nearly half of all renters now fall into that category. So half of all renters in the United States pay 30% of their income to rent. That's insane. I think, you know, maybe I saw the ABX girl throw out like 50%. You probably do have like anomalies, like let's say if you're living in New York or San Francisco or something like that. Hey, the Papa Smurf is here. The Papa Smurf, good to see you. Love the Hey, speaking of the FDNY. Speaking of the FDNY, here we are right here. Big thumbs up in the chat for our brave men and women in the FDNY. Absolutely love it. big support from the Walks on Wall Street stream. I think this is what, ladder 20, engine 13. Big respect to all of our people in the FDNY, love it. Good to see you, the Papa Smurf. But I think that's high. I mean, think about that, 30%, so nearly half of Americans now are allocating 30% of their income to rent. But here's the good news. So housing accounts for about 1/3 of inflation, so as we're talking about the CPI number. So the Consumer Price Index reached an annual rate of 9.1% in June, the highest rate in more than 40 years. The Labor Department said our average hourly earnings, meanwhile, only rose about 5.1% in June compared with the same month last year. So everybody's all happy. The media, the mainstream media outlets, if you watch, CNN Business, if you watch Fox Business, they're like, yeah, but people are making more money than ever. They're getting raises. Yeah, well, I mean, the 5% raise that we're all getting is negated and is actually comes out to be negative when you factor in inflation. So it's pretty much just like a wash. And if you guys looked at the interview of Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari, I think it was on Face the Nation. Sunday night. He said the same exact thing. He says the amount of inflation data we are getting at the Fed is very alarming, and it's showing inflation not only growing, but expanding out through multiple sectors and multiple segments throughout the economy. So if people get a 5% raise, but inflation is running at 9%, there's a very good possibility we could fall into what's called the wage price spiral, which has been economic theory of many economists think we're in it now. I think we could avoid it if we get very aggressive in raising interest rates. But the theory is, as inflation keeps rising, employers have to keep paying more and more and more for their employees to make ends meet, and then that perpetuates the inflation. Speaking of really good food, everybody, Zuba right here is an absolutely fantastic Egyptian restaurant. So if you guys love Egyptian food, please come out and check out Zuba right here. Fantastic. Mr. Schnaffner says, do you believe the Fed will need to raise their terminal rate implied Fed funds futures beyond 3.4%? If they really want to do something about inflation, yes. If they really want to do something about inflation, I think so. And here's why. I think the rate hikes that we're getting now, I really don't think the Federal Reserve believes in their heart that it's going to do anything to fight inflation. What they're probably trying to do is say, okay, we'll throw out a couple 75 basis point rate hikes here to let the market know that we're getting aggressive so the market can do the majority of the work for us. Right, so usually the market will do much of the work for the Federal Reserve. Right, so the market will sell off. We went through a period of PE compression where a lot of the tech stocks sold off. You just look at where bond yields went. Look at that US 10-year Treasury yield since the low of the pandemic. I mean, we had a meltdown in the bond market. Not a lot of people would say that, but we did. All right, everybody, here is Little Italy. Beautiful Little Italy. If you guys are enjoying the stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Once again, for those of you who are new here, we do go live about 5 days per week, starting at 8:30 at night, New York or Miami time, same time. Yeah, Jonathan Francis's Cannoli King, please. Well, we're gonna walk past it in like a minute. Yeah, NMB 045 says, Tom, I think it would be 60% for those on the lowest incomes. Hey, everybody, we have the one, the only Carol H is here. Says, I'm so jealous right now. Yeah, we haven't been to New York City in a New York City, Little Italy in a long, long time. So definitely happy to be here. Check out all of the cool architecture here. Ice says, please come here to Italy. I would love to. I would love to. Sunshine After Rain says it's been a while for sure. Yeah, it's probably been about a month, right, since we've been down this way. Usually we tend to stream towards, Midtown area, all that good stuff. The Papa Smurfs says the best pizza in Little Italy is Zia Maria, Little Italy. I've never heard of that. Let's actually go look for that. To be honest, I haven't really had good pizza here in Little Italy. Could we get a quick time check in the chat just to see what time I need to head back? Ryan Royal says it's all over. If I hit up Little Italy, I'll come home. Have to take a cargo plane now. Yeah, I know. It's definitely a good time. I like the close proximity between Chinatown and Little Italy. I think that's probably my favorite aspect. So there's a good bakery down here, Ferrara Bakery we just passed. That's a good spot too if anybody wants to go there. I probably shouldn't be saying that too loud now that we're passing Cannoli King. There may be a little bit of a rivalry here. Is Cannoli King good? Oh, it's fantastic. It's the best spot in Little Italy. I wouldn't go to any other place. It's good. It's good. I'm being honest, all the places here are good. I'm not sure about the restaurants. I don't really eat in the restaurants here. But like a lot of the bakeries, I used to come here as a kid all the time, and we used to mainly get like the cannolis, like the Italian pastries, all that stuff. But besides that, one of my favorite things about Little Italy is the building with all the fire escapes on them. I love the buildings. I guess you could call them the pre-war buildings with all the fire escapes. But everything seems like it closes down fairly early. Oh, this is what the Papa Smurf was talking about. It's actually right here. Zia Maria right here. So this is the Papa Smurf's favorite pizza shop here. Yeah, Life, Liberty, and Guns is like pre-World War II buildings, yeah. So I was helping my friend move, I think I told you guys. I was helping my friend move out of his 2-bedroom apartment downtown. And we were moving out, and all the air conditioners were taken out of the rooms because we had to hike all of his air conditioners up to the Upper West Side. And it was so unbearably hot. And I turned to my friend and I said, I'm like, how did people before AC, how did they survive, man? Because, I mean, imagine living in one of these buildings here, these brick buildings with no air conditioning during the summer. I mean, yikes. I honestly don't know how people did it. That's why I think people were a lot tougher than they are today back then. Hey, the Papa Smurf, the OG. Says we go there on the way back from calls sometimes. Really great food and nice environment. Awesome. I'm gonna have to check it out. Maybe I'll check it out this weekend then. I'm gonna tell him the guys at the firehouse sent me. Yeah, Dan Zhang's says hard time breeds hard people. That's true. That's so true. So we had to move all of his furniture, all that stuff down, and it was so hot. It felt like I was getting delirious. Like I couldn't even think straight. It was so hot. All right, everybody. I think we're gonna need to pick up the pace here because I want to make it to the Brooklyn Bridge before the battery dies. So apologize if we're not hitting on all the topics. Oh, this place looks kind of cool. Cappuccino gelato. This is a massive cannoli here. I've never been to this one. I'll have to check it out. All right, everybody, I'm gonna go into battery conservation mode because we gotta make it to the Brooklyn Bridge. I gotta take you guys. You know what? I don't know if we'll be able to make it. We're gonna try, we're gonna go for it, might as well. Hey, Abdullah is here, what's up? Marvin Joseph is here. Welcome, Marvin. Good to see you. Yeah, Robert says we're still kind of far from the Brooklyn Bridge. We are, man. I gotta pick up the pace. Dan Zhang says, do you have a portable charger? I don't. So here's the reason why I don't have a portable charger. I'll tell you guys why. If I had a portable charger, we'd probably never stop streaming. So I think it's, once the battery dies, that's when we call it a night. But I think we'll make it. We'll just make it to the Brooklyn Bridge, and the view is going to be amazing tonight. And if we don't make it, what we'll do is we'll start the stream from Lower Manhattan and walk up. But I think we'll make it. We're making good time. And I think it's actually starting to cool down now too today, which is good tonight. Yeah, line syncs as the battery calls the shots. Hey, James Dixon is here. This is my daughter Emily is watching. Good to see you too. Welcome. We're in a little bit of a rush to the Brooklyn Bridge. We're walking through Chinatown. Hey, Abdullah, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Much appreciated. Thank you for the support, my friend. Thank you for joining. But for those of you who are just joining, we did a big stream tonight. We covered Zoom info, ticker symbol ZI. We covered AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, reported earnings. Also, we talked about Starbucks. Starbucks reported earnings as well. And then we talked about a little bit of good news. It seems like the prices of rents are sort of tapering off here, which is good. Maybe that'll show up in the CPI prints. But the last trivia question of the night. You guys ready? Okay, because I'm going anyway. How many Starbucks locations do they have globally? Wait, let me make sure this is the question, because I couldn't believe it when they reported it. For X is 30%. Okay, here it is. What is the total global restaurant count for Starbucks? So across the world globally, how many store locations do you think Starbucks has? And if you guys get it right, again, if you ever come to New York, this one, dinner's on me. If you come to New York, dinner's on me, I promise, if you get this one right. Ooh, man, people are close. 33, 34. Ooh, so close. And we're gonna round up to the nearest whole. We're gonna round up to the nearest whole number, by the way. Nope. Nope, I'm not seeing it yet. Unlimited stimulus. I think unlimited stimulus got it, everybody. 35K, because we're gonna round up to the nearest whole number. So Starbucks did open 318 new locations worldwide during the quarter. That brings the total global restaurant count to 34,948. So we're just gonna round up and say 35,000. So out of all the Starbucks locations in the world, after Q2, Starbucks added 318 new stores. That brings their total store count to 34,948. So 35,000 stores. So unlimited stimulus, dude. Unlimited stimulus. If you come to New York, dude, we'll go to Becca or whatever. Yeah, Wendy England was close to at 42K. Ooh, man, that rat is huge. Oh, man, that's gross. I know, isn't that a crazy amount? When I read that in the earnings transcript. So if you guys want to see these numbers for yourself, by the way, if you type !SBUX in the chat, once again, ticker symbol SBUX in the chat, I actually programmed the Nightbot to drop the earnings press release. So you guys can actually read this in real time yourself. Same thing with AMD. And same thing with Zoom Info. If you want to see Zoom Info's investor deck, if you type !ZI in the chat, it'll drop it there for you as well. Dark Stars is how much do you personally spend on coffee a year, do you reckon? Let me actually try to calculate that. Let me actually try to calculate that. We're so close to the Brooklyn Bridge, man. I hope my phone doesn't die. I'm gonna say more than. It depends on when I take clients out too. So I'm gonna say maybe 4,000, maybe less, depending on if I have to take clients out. I think that's probably a fair estimate. All right, but everybody, we're gonna pick up the pace a little bit. So once again, what we're gonna do at the conclusion of these live streams, which I think is gonna be a little bit helpful for everybody, because I know everybody can't join the entire time. What I'm gonna do, if you look at my community page on YouTube, check out the World Trade Center tonight. Wow, beautiful. No, not a month. I think a year. Let's see. I'm gonna do a quick live stream recap. So I'm gonna type up like an agenda of what we talked about, and all of the necessary links will be posted on the community page. So for example, I will post Zoom Info's investor deck. I'll post AMD's earnings call, so you guys could have a clear and concise place where to read all this stuff and where to listen to it for free. Yeah, James's futures are mixed tonight. Somebody says bridge or no bridge. That is the question. Yeah, so Dusty Cole, I think the number is pretty high because when I have to take clients out, right? So a lot of the time, you know, if you're in New York, I'll grab coffee with a client, right? And I have to pay for it, right? It's the courteous thing to do. So I guess you can consider that an expense. Obviously, all that stuff is a write-off. So I would just consider like dining and all that stuff, it's like a 50% deduction. I think that's probably why it's a little bit more elevated. Maybe if I lived in more of a rural environment, it wouldn't be so high. Maybe it's less than 4,000. I don't know. I gotta look. Here we have another beautiful view of the World Trade Center right here. I think we're gonna make it. We're on 10% battery, but we're gonna make it, guys. We are right at the entrance of the Brooklyn Bridge. So for future reference, it's actually a pretty good gauge. It's actually a pretty good gauge. So it takes about 2 hours and 13 minutes to walk from 57th Street to the Brooklyn Bridge, you know, assuming we stop to take a look at the Empire State Building, assuming we stop to, you know, do the show and talk about the topics for the night. It's actually not too bad, right? It's actually not too bad at all. Here we are, we made it. Brooklyn Bridge, here we come. I think this is the only night on the stream as well that I'm breaking a sweat a little bit just because it's so humid out. FredX says tonight's stream is an instant classic. Appreciate it. Atomic Skittles says, do your feet hurt when walking? No, my feet really don't hurt, no. All right, everybody, we are now on the Brooklyn Bridge. And I promise you, I can't really look at the chat right now because I turned the brightness all the way down because I want you guys to see the view from over the bridge. And I think we'll conclude the stream there. Yeah, Brad's brain's like, isn't it amazing how old the Brooklyn Bridge is? I know. One of my favorite bridges, and also, they took all the scaffolding down, which is great. So that's the on-ramp to the Brooklyn Bridge, and you're actually overlooking Pace University here. And you can see the spire of the One World Trade Center as well. Ruby Falcone, appreciate it, Ruby. So one of the good things about the Brooklyn Bridge, if you guys want to come and visit, they removed the bike lane from the top of the bridge and they actually put it on the lower level right here. And it didn't used to be like that. All the bikes used to come barreling down right in front of all the pedestrians, which was terrible. Hey, ASMR Eduardo, thank you so much for the donation. Appreciate the $2 donation, man. Thank you, thank you. So once again, here is the on-ramp to the Brooklyn Bridge. So we're almost halfway over. I think we'll just make it. Mike C says, Tom, can you put the Demoderan link on the YouTube community page? Yes, I will. So once again, at the conclusion of the stream, I will be doing a stream recap write-up. So for those of you, because there's a lot of people who email me that say, hey, I don't have time to watch the streams. Is there any way you could do a little bit of a write-up on what you talk about? And absolutely, I will do that. But then also next week, everybody, on Tuesday, look out in your email box because we will be having a return of the Behind the Street newsletter where we will send that out every other week. So if you type !news, NEWS, in the chat, click the link that the Nightbot will drop. Punch in your email and you'll get a free investing focused newsletter by me every other week. All right, we're almost over the top. Bob is like Escape from New York. Funny. But if the phone dies, everybody, I appreciate you joining tonight. I will see you all tomorrow at 8:30. And if you want to join us tomorrow at 8:30, hit the subscribe button and leave a like on the video. And we will go until the phone dies here on the Brooklyn Bridge. Hey, British Grey, thank you so much. Unlimited Stimulus, thank you so much. If you look in the distance, you could see the Manhattan Bridge, everybody. Marvin Joseph says, can you shout out me and my girlfriend Aureen in New York City? Absolutely. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for watching the streams. I appreciate it very much. And I hope you two have a prosperous week. Brad's Brain, have a good sleep, my friend. We'll see you next time. It's so peaceful up here. If you guys visit New York, you got to come to the Brooklyn Bridge during the day, and then you got to come to Brooklyn Bridge during the nighttime, because it's completely different vibe, for sure. Hey, Sherry Rodrigo, thank you so much for joining. Myra King says, thank you, Tom, for the stream. No problem. And if you look in the distance here, you'll be able to see the Empire State Building all lit up. But everybody, that'll do it. So Wendy England, Dolly Girl Twins, all of our good moderators. Thank you everybody for joining. Ruby Falcone, appreciate it. Everybody have a fantastic middle of the week. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Stay optimistic. You could do whatever you want to do this week. Do whatever you want to do. Just don't quit. It's the only thing I ask. Just don't quit. To the Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. And I will see everybody right back here tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. New York time. Subscribe if you are new, and I'll see everybody tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your night.